Welcome to Nonprofit Profiles. I'm Genevieve Riatort. Today we're featuring a nonprofit organization that is very dear to my heart, St. Joseph Center. Years ago, I started my career in nonprofits at St. Joseph Center, and their programs for low-income families, for seniors, for children, for homeless people are amazing, and I'm so excited to be able to share some of their work with you today. We have with us Andrew, who is a client in their chronic homeless program. Thank you, Andrew, for being with us.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's really great to have you, and I appreciate your willingness to talk about your story.
Oh, sure.
So can you tell me what your life was like just before you came to St. Joseph Center?
Well, I guess there's two stages. There was one stage where I was homeless for about 7 years, and I used the daily services that are provided there at the homeless shelter. You know, food and taking a shower, stuff like that. Basic rudimentary stuff that you need, but you really can't find out there in the streets or anything. So you go to places like St. Joe's, or they'd have blankets, stuff like that, because those are the kind of things that end up getting stolen or lost, or you always need to be replenished, it seems like. So you'd go to a place like St. Joe's, and they would have those and many other services. And then the last 3 years I've been housed, so all that was possible through St. Joe's, because they helped me, put me on the fast track off the streets and into housing. So it's been 3 years now that I've been off the streets. So.
Congratulations.
Thanks, yeah.
I'm very happy to hear that.
I thought I've told some of my caseworkers, I figured I was going to be on the streets for the rest of my life. So, so it's
and is that because you just
change.
Didn't see a way out?
Yeah, it's once you get there on the streets, it's hard to get off, and you spend a lot of time trying to get off, but then you just sort of, this process or the system sort of grinds you down, and you just end up thinking, well, other people, or I've survived this long, I can survive another day, and another day becomes, pretty soon it becomes a year, and after you've done it for a year, it's a way of life,
Right.
So it's hard to break out of that. Some people call it a rut, but it's a lot, becomes a lifestyle, it becomes a way of living, so.
And how did the people at St. Joseph Center help you to make that transition? I mean, not just, the here's how you access the program and here's how you can get services, but really the mental journey of having hope and believing that you would get off the street.
Well, they pretty much, they said, well, because before, like I said, I'd just go there for showers and stuff like that, but they said they had this program, started with the homeless court program, and I did that, and I got clearing, all my tickets cleaned up and stuff like that, and they said, well, they pretty much promised me that, if I showed up and did the work, I would be rewarded with an apartment. So I thought, well, it can't be that hard to, put a little effort into it. And
Well,
that's what I did.
Pretty good payoff.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. Let me tell you.
So one of the things that I know about St. Joseph Center that I really love is their Bread and Roses Cafe. Can you talk a little bit about your experience with that program?
Yeah, I first found out about, like most of the things, from other homeless people, and they said, yeah, if you want food, there's a place in Venice called the Bread and Roses Cafe, and they serve 3 times a day. You get a hot meal, sit down, coffee, orange juice usually, stuff like that.
Flowers on the tables.
Yeah.
It's nice. It's like a restaurant.
Well, it's like being at a restaurant, yeah. Instead of sitting in a park, looking for a bench or just sitting on the grass or whatever and having people look at you, you're actually, that's the one thing about being homeless is you have no what do you call it, not downtime, but no private space, private time. And that was what Bread and Roses was, kind of, it's like being a human being. You can sort of like walk, you're not walking into your own apartment, but you're walking into a restaurant, and you're not out there in the open in some park, which is, I guess after a while you sort of tune all that out anyways, It's
right.
like, but after a while, the eternal picnic sort of,
Yeah. Well, and I would imagine it brings back a sense of normalcy.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
That this is something that you would do before you were homeless.
Yeah, because it's like all of a sudden what's normal changes, and all of a sudden it's like, oh wow, I forgot that this was the old normal, because the new normal is sitting in a park, and
right.
the new normal is You know, one step is, you know, maybe having lunch in a restaurant, and the other is having a lunch in your own apartment. So, yeah.
So what was it like when you first got to walk through the door of your own apartment?
Well, it was. I had been indoors for a little while at this other through this other program. I went through Claire for about 5 months. But yeah, to have your own place where, you know, you didn't have to wake up at a certain time, or, you know, you didn't have to get rousted by the cops, and you didn't have to worry about, you know, your stuff being stolen in the middle of the night or beat up or whatever, you know. So it was, yeah, it was it's been 3 months, but yeah, I still appreciate it, you know. And
Wow, so 3 months. And is this becoming the new normal now?
oh, I'm sorry, 3 years.
Oh,
It's been
3 years. Yeah, 3
it's
years.
been 3 years. Yeah, yeah.
So it's definitely the new normal.
Yeah, it's definitely now it's the new normal. Yeah, yeah.
And are there, you know, you mentioned earlier that you found out about St. Joseph Center because of some other homeless people.
Yeah, sort of like the grapevine, you know.
Right.
One.
And do you have relationships with some other clients and maybe former clients of St. Joseph Center?
I do have one friend from the street still, but a lot of people, I guess not just me, got involved in programs. So a lot of the people I see on the streets, because, you know, you go to the library, you go to the promenade, or you go to the beach, and you still see, you know, some old timers. But a lot of the people I knew have disappeared. So I don't know if they've also gotten indoors or not. But there's still a few like hardcore cases, I guess you call them. You
Yeah.
know, like people who were, for whatever reason, have decided to stay on the streets, or are still on the streets for whatever reason. You know, I
Right.
really don't know. You know,
And now that you are housed, do you still access services at St. Joseph Center? Are there ways that they can stay in touch with you? And
oh yeah, I've got a caseworker, and I see her like once a week, something like that. Maybe every 2 weeks.
so it's not just, here's your apartment, see you later.
Right. No,
Yeah.
no. They keep involved with you.
Right.
I've got a payee and everything, so I go to see Joaquin once a month. There's a pantry. I go get food, you know. So I see them once a week. So, and there's various programs, like they had a computer class I took.
Well, that's
So
great.
yeah, there's a lot of extra little things in there. So
So you still get to get that support. You're housed, you know, but sometimes there may be things that you need, and St. Joseph Center continues to be there for you.
oh yeah, they help me with my medication. They get that, you know. So if there's ever a problem, they're the first people I call. Yeah. So.
Wow. Well, thank you so much,
Oh.
Andrew. I really appreciate you coming on the show and telling us your story. It's really inspiring to hear about your success.
I
So,
was happy to share, because it's been a wonderful journey from the streets to an apartment. So
well, congratulations.
thank you, Genevieve.
Thank you for being with us. Next, we're going to hear a little bit about the nuts and bolts of how St. Joseph Center is able to help so many people. Please stay with us.
Experience Highways Performance Space and Gallery.
I knew my journey would lead me to a place
where I'd find a highway that I could travel to the beat of my own drum. Right out the storm, 95 Joey died, but Deadly was born. And there would be no limits to the vibrancy of my performance.
Join us each week at Highways Performance Space and Gallery and live without limits. Log on to highwaysperformance.org.
Welcome back to Nonprofit Profiles. Here to tell us about the Santa Monica Chronic Homeless Project and some of the other fantastic programs at St. Joseph Center are Julie DeRose, Director of Program, and Paul Rubenstein, Development Director. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
So Julie, we just heard about Andrew's amazing journey, and I know that he's a client in that Chronic Homeless Project. Can you tell us more about how that program works?
Yeah, the program is funded through the City of Santa Monica, and it's been in existence now since 2007. And the goal of the program is to focus on the most chronically homeless and vulnerable clients that live in the City of Santa Monica on the streets. So they would be like the highest utilizer of services, those who have been on the streets for the longest period of time. I think the average length of stay for the clients that we target is about 10 years.
That's 10 years on the street.
On the streets. And it's a 4-person team. It's a master's level program manager, and then 3 case managers, 1 master's level and 2 bachelor level. And they each carry a small caseload, because what we know with this population is that the more intensive services you provide, the more likely they are to stay housed. We use a housing first approach, which means that we'll house clients directly from the streets into an apartment. And the case managers really focus on going out and getting them what they need to make them housing able to be housed, and then they spend a lot of time doing intensive services with them to keep them housed. So sometimes they're in the apartment every day trying to make sure that the client is doing okay. They deal with the landlords, they do whatever they need to do to get the clients housed and to keep them housed. And to date, we have housed approximately 50 individuals, and we have a retention rate of about 93%. So very few clients have lost housing. And what we have learned is that with this population, contrary to popular belief, these clients with supportive services can stay housed. And that there is a way to help them get off the streets. Now, just one other piece of information I'd like to share is that we use the City of Santa Monica has a program called the Homeless Liaise Team, which for short is the HELP Team, and they're a group of police officers who work with us hand in hand and have been instrumental in helping us move some of these clients into housing. So we're very appreciative to their support.
Wow, so it really is a partnership.
Absolutely.
And it seems like by allowing the clients to get into an apartment and then have, constant support, that's really what makes the difference.
Absolutely, that's what we're finding. That's what best practice research shows, and we're seeing that it's really true.
Wow. Well, thanks for telling us about that.
Thank you.
It's nice to hear a little bit about how things actually work behind the scenes.
Great.
So, Paul, I saw on the St. Joseph Center website something about toddlers to seniors. So St. Joseph Center has a lot of different programs, I would imagine.
St. Joseph Center has a pretty broad portfolio when it comes to services for underserved populations. Our mission is to serve, working poor families as well as homeless men, women, and children of all ages to provide them with the inner tools and resources to become productive, stable, and self-supporting members of the community.
Wow.
So it's a pretty big agenda.
Yes.
We were founded by two sisters of St. Joseph of Carondelet in the mid-'70s who came to Venice and just saw a lot of families who needed a lot of help. And our work has grown since then. About 10 years after that founding, we became an independent 501c3 organization. So we serve everyone in need, regardless of background or religious affiliation or lack thereof. And we serve about 6,000 people a year. So just under half of those are homeless, but actually just over half of the people that we serve are low-income people who have apartments. They may live in very crowded apartments and in very crowded living conditions, but they do have some kind of a home. Andrew mentioned that he accesses the food pantry now that he has his own apartment, and that's actually our single largest program. It serves over 1,000 households a year. Last year it served over 2,800 people, and for the first time ever we distributed more than 20,000 bags of groceries.
That's amazing.
And it's up about 30% since the economy really hit the skids a few years ago.
And what are some of the other programs that families use?
So we have a child care program as well, and it's a really interesting model that we're pretty excited about. It's relatively new for us, but it's actually is an integrated, socioeconomically integrated model. So families from the community that might be able to afford a market rate for childcare have their children in our classrooms. We have a toddler classroom and a preschool classroom. And those families would have their children in a classroom with children from families that are our clients that might be homeless or may have been very recently homeless.
That's so wonderful.
And they're all receiving the exact same instruction. It's a dual immersion classroom, Spanish, English, so all of our teachers are proficient in both languages, and there's a systematic way that we use both languages in the classroom so that everyone is getting dual language instruction. So it's a really exciting and sort of best practice, cutting edge kind of model.
That's very exciting. It's nice to know that everyone's getting the same treatment.
Exactly. I mean, I think that's really a part of our fundamental philosophy is that everyone deserves the same dignity and respect, whether they walk through the door as a donor, as a volunteer, as a client. That's one of the things that I really love about St. Joseph Center, is that it inhabits a corner of Los Angeles, which is Venice, and then the sort of southern part of Santa Monica that is much more economically diverse than a lot of parts of the city.
Right.
And so we have a client, a volunteer, and a donor base that could actually run into each other at a corner store, maybe a mile or two from the center. And there's not a lot of places that serve that kind of a disadvantaged population that you could see that much interaction. And so we always say, you don't know who's coming through the door and what they are now and what they might be tomorrow. And so it's important that everyone be accorded the same degree of respect.
Wow. Well, it sounds like you're doing wonderful work, not only with the homeless population, but also with families that live in our community that just need some help. You know, maybe they can't quite afford the rent and the groceries, so there's some homeless prevention going on there as well.
Absolutely.
And can you tell us your website, so if people want to get involved?
The website is www.stjosephctr.org. So there are a couple of abbreviations in there.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being with
Thank
us and for
you.
sharing a little bit about the great work that you're doing, and please keep up the good work.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so
Thanks for having
much.
Thank you for being with us on Nonprofit Profiles. We have one more guest from St. Joseph Center left, Kevin McCardle, the board chair. Please stay with us.
Welcome to our home away from home.
Action!
When I came here, I discovered I could write.
I found the confidence to share my poetry, and now they're songs.
I got away from the trouble in my neighborhood.
Come check us out.
At the Pico Youth and Family Center.
Join us.
Or volunteer. Together, we can change our world.
That's a wrap.
Welcome back to the show. Here with me is Kevin McCardle, board chair at St. Joseph Center. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
So how long have you been serving on the board with St. Joseph Center?
I started serving on the board in 2004, and then I've been the board chair for the past 3 years.
So you've been around for a little while.
Been around for a little while, indeed.
And I'm so impressed with the work that you're doing and your clients. Andrew was so wonderful and inspiring to hear from.
Andrew was amazing, and I think is a perfect example of the clients that St. Joseph Center serves. You know, the sisters who started us, their charter is to serve the dear neighbor. And when you listen to Andrew, you understand that he is one of our neighbors. I mean, he's just like you and me.
Right.
And had a run of bad luck, and then through the St. Joseph Center, people like Andrew can be helped to help themselves, and that's what we're there for.
And it is a give and take, so
Right. Yeah,
people
yeah.
have to
Definitely.
bring something to the table.
Definitely. But it does, as Julie pointed out, it fights this notion that the homeless people want to be homeless, that they don't want housing. And that's not true. It's just not true.
Right. And I know that St. Joseph Center, as we said earlier, helps from toddlers to seniors.
Indeed.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you serve seniors?
Yes. So Andrew mentioned the food pantry. That's one example where we even have a subpopulation of Russian emigres who came to the United States a long time ago, and they're older now, obviously, but they come to the food pantry on a weekly basis, and without that, they would be homeless. The adjustment has been hard for them. There's a woman I sit next to at church who had been a professional. She was a professional chef. And she got Lyme disease, lost her medical insurance, lost her apartment, and wound up on the street. And she was in her mid-60s.
Wow.
And it was the St. Joseph Center that helped her get back into housing. You know, people don't necessarily wind up homeless by choice.
Right. Well, I mean, I know, especially now in this tough economy, for many families, having access to free food can sometimes mean the difference between staying housed and being homeless.
Right, indeed.
And I know that, from my work at Westside Food Bank, that often the food program is something that is a first step, so that it helps to establish a relationship and build trust. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Right. There's something very natural, primal, sort of, about food. So you think
bread.
about when your friends are sick, you bring soup. If there's a funeral or a wake, you bring food. And it's the same kind of thing. You break bread. You both at Bread and Roses, which is like my favorite volunteer spot at St. Joseph Center, and at the pantry. People trust you more when you break bread with them. Right? And then they open themselves up to the other services that we provide.
So like Andrew said, it started with a shower and a meal, and the next thing you know, counseling, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I could use some help.
Yeah.
So you talked a little bit about volunteering. I know that St. Joseph Center has a pretty extensive volunteer program. Can you tell us how people out in the community who might want to be of service can do so?
Certainly. We need volunteers. So St. Joseph Center has about 80 to 90 full-time regular employees, and it has about 800 volunteers.
Wow.
400 of those volunteers are on a regular basis. So they're coming to the agency regularly throughout the year. And then the other 400, at Christmas time and, one-off events. We couldn't do the work without the volunteers.
Wow, I mean, 400 regular volunteers, that's like additional staff.
Right, indeed. Yes.
I mean, that's got to be just invaluable.
Right. Schools, for instance, who have service hour requirements for their students. We get a lot of students coming in and serving.
And what can volunteers do? What are some of the jobs that are available?
So serving at Bread and Roses, Bread and Roses, we have a chef, and then everything else there is done by volunteers. In the food pantry, we need volunteers. We're going to need even more volunteers in the pantry. We're switching to a client-based model in the pantry. So rather than just handing someone a bag of groceries once a week, they're going to get to come in and shop for the things that they want. And so we'll need many more volunteers to help there.
That's a great service.
Right, it's going to be spectacular. We need volunteers, and we have a thrift store where all the furniture from here was purchased, I was told.
I'm proud to hear that.
And we need volunteers to assist in the thrift store.
And where's that thrift store located?
It's on Lincoln, just south of Pico.
So
just south of the 10, on the west side of Lincoln.
Wonderful. So people can donate to the thrift store, and that helps to support the programs.
Indeed, right.
And they can shop there.
And they can shop
and
there.
find wonderful furniture.
Yes, indeed.
Wow. And can you just speak briefly as to how being involved with St. Joseph Center has touched your life and affected you as a board member, as a volunteer?
Yeah. Not to overstate it, but it helps to give purpose to my life. I have a professional life. I have a day job that keeps me quite busy. But when you were at the St. Joseph Center, and I think Paul mentioned it, it doesn't matter whether you are a client or a donor or a staff member, you are treated with the same level of respect as everybody else who comes through the door. There's an inherent belief in the dignity of every human being. And
it's a community.
It's a community. It is a community. And you meet the nicest people. The people on our board are wonderful. The volunteers are wonderful. We have board members who have been serving the St. Joseph Center for over 20 years. And then we have brand new board members as well.
It's clearly a great place, and I know from personal experience, because as I mentioned, I started my career at St. Joseph Center and always have a warm place in my heart for it. And thank you so much for your service and for being willing to come on the show and share your story and tell us about the great work that's happening at St. Joseph Center.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Well, I hope it continues to go on for as long as the work is needed.
It will. It will.
Well, thank you so much for being with us for another edition of Nonprofit Profiles. It's really been my pleasure to put a spotlight on the great work that is happening at St. Joseph Center. I hope that you'll get involved and volunteer and find out more at stjosephctr.org. Thank you so much. Wow, that was great.